Hi everyone. A special welcome to any new followers after the Chester Bennington video. What you'll find here is a lot of pop culture and entertainment industry commentary that I hope is meaningful, concise, and always happens when I have strong opinions about something. Today we're going to be talking about Dunkirk, the new war movie. It's currently 93% fresh on Rotten Tomatoes, and it has a score of 94 on Metacritic, which is in the category of universal acclaim. People are saying right now that it's a shoo-in for nominations at next year's Oscars. The thing is, I'm a dissenting voice. I'm coming from the perspective of being the daughter of an armchair World War II historian, so that may explain some of these things, but I found Dunkirk to be a very frustrating experience. Let's deal with the positives first. It's a very striking film in multiple aspects. The structuring is very clever. It sort of moves away from the normal formula. And visually it's something else. It's at the next level. Incredibly vast, haunting visuals of these empty beaches with the brown sea foam constantly blowing in. Then there's Hans Zimmer's perpetually anxious score, just taking things to the next level of tension. And I loved the aerial combat with the Spitfires. That was my favorite part of the film. But the thing is that Dunkirk is a Christopher Nolan film. It's not a war movie. If you want to see a powerful examination of this seminal moment in World War II history, which frankly I think deserves a treatment by contemporary filmmakers with all the tools available to them today, this movie isn't it. Basically, it's a thriller set against the backdrop of these historical events. And in case you think I'm just ragging on Christopher Nolan, The Prestige is one of my top 10 movies of all time. I loved his earlier work like Memento, Insomnia, The Dark Knight's amazing. But I've just found in recent years he seems to have his work's become more pretentious and cold. I've become disenchanted. Dunkirk is definitely aloof. I'm someone who's very character orientated in terms of their entertainment. I can watch something that's quite mediocre if I'm really invested in a character, and there's very little to hook onto in Dunkirk. The only exception is Mark Rylance's civilian skipper. He's the only character who's really explored in any kind of depth as to why they're doing what they're doing. But a bigger issue for me really was that I felt Dunkirk was a muddle of interesting ideas and treatments, and instead of sticking to one and sort of exploring it thoroughly, heading all the way through to a natural conclusion, Christopher Nolan would start exploring one, then kind of falter, take a few step backs, and then head off in another direction with another issue or theme. For example, Dunkirk doesn't feel like a credible flesh and blood take on the historical events that inspired it. If you compare, say, the few scenes in Atonement, you really got a sense of the chaos there, sort of the packed beaches, the men panicking, not knowing what to do, soldiers shooting horses. It felt real. Dunkirk doesn't for 1 second feel real. It doesn't feel like an evacuation of 400,000 British soldiers. Most of the time, visually, it looks like maybe 5,000. And I'll say now that that's fine if you want to play up the surreal nature of war. Apocalypse Now is a very good example of a film that did that. And there's certainly moments where you get this sense of dissociation of war that can possibly happen. In Dunkirk, you have moments like soldiers stripping off all their gear and just literally walking into the sea. It's suicide, but apparently they're evidently trying to swim all the way to England. There's loads of shots of these soldiers just lined up in orderly queues. They're defeated, they've got nothing else to do, but they've maintained this weird purgatory order of waiting, and then the German bombers come and all these men can do is just drop face down in the sand. There's nothing to protect them, there's no shields. It's awful, it's horrible, it's literally the stuff of nightmares. But Nolan, when he does these scenes, gives us these moments, he does them incredibly well, And then about halfway through the movie, he kind of forgets about this approach. He no longer tries to depict the war in these kind of surreal methods. After that point, after he's given up on that, suddenly there's a bit about shell shock and post-traumatic stress disorder, and then veers off, and there's a little bit about wartime distrust. Can you trust these soldiers who are around you? Maybe they're infiltrating, or the enemy infiltrating. And then right at the end, you have about a 5-minute discussion of the shame and guilt that many of the British men felt on getting back to England, and they've had to retreat, they've lost, and how did they deal with that sense of being defeated, and could they look people in the eye, that kind of thing. But in Dunkirk, that's all skimmed over. The explorations are weak and superficial. As for the poster tagline, the event that shaped our world, I got no sense of that whatsoever. So overall, Dunkirk was a very disappointing experience for me. It's not what I wanted from a movie about Dunkirk. It's a real life event that is psychologically very complex and unusual, and I think it deserved more than to be just a backdrop for a thriller. So yeah, Dunkirk as a movie is very technically accomplished. It's cool, but it's also cold, and it didn't come close to, in fact, I don't think it even bothered to try and tackle the deeper issues around the historical incidents. But now I'm going to sort of leave the floor open to you. If you agree with me, if you disagree, please leave a comment below this review. And thank you for watching, and we'll chat again soon.